My dad's a policeman, my mom was the secretary of the rugby union, so we had a strict upbringing. Times were tough, yet we were a special family. I mean, and mom would manage the house financially and spiritually, and we'd be dropped off for Sunday school every Sunday, and discipline was strict at home, being son of a policeman. And ultimately, simply, we weren't to put our family in disrepute in any way. And we were always told not to lie, not to deceive, and in that way we could rely on our family. We'd stand with each other through thick and thin. Well, it was mandatory to go to the army. Being a policeman's son, I mean, it was something that you did. Unfortunately for me, I got blown up, I think, in my second year as an officer, and pretty badly burned, third-degree burns, over 30% of my body. And our mom was in South Africa, the family was here. They flew me down to one military hospital, and I spent, I think it was about 6 months in hospital. And they regrafted my face and my arms. There were no real opportunities at that point in time, and started up against my dad's better wishes. At the time it was more about you had to have a pension, you had to have a government job. So I was one of the first in the family to decide to start doing my own thing, and it took us 20 years, but worked 7 days a week. We did what we needed to achieve success. Along the way sometimes we didn't know why, what it was, why we were pushing as hard, which by definition meant that we would push our staff. We push those around us to achieve business objectives. I think it was around 2005. We were launching one of our ranges in Mozambique. I was there, and I was ill when I went, to be honest. Spent 5 days there, and I think when I got back, I thought I had bad flu, and it just turns out that I fell over 21 days later in a presentation at the office, and it turned out to be malaria. I was taken to hospital, and my body had pretty much failed. So by that evening, I found myself in intensive care. I think it was 6 weeks that I spent there. It started off by getting the wrong medication, which exacerbated the problem, and they then had to induce me into a coma, which I think lasted about 2 weeks. When I woke up, Mom was there, and she'd been praying, and turns out that we made it through that hurdle. I think just to add to that, when a lot of prayer goes through your head when people tell you, look, you may not make it. When I realized I was 45 and there was a chance that I could be checking out, you have a lot of time to lie and basically my lungs had collapsed, so you spend all night just looking at the ceiling. You've got a lot of time to think and pray. And by doing some basic sums, I realized I was 45 years old, 50 was around the corner, and 50 then you're over the hill. And basically just realizing that that you're mortal. I lost Mom, I think it was about 10 years ago, and that was a mountain to climb in its own, to say goodbye to Mom. And I missed being able to talk to her and to call her, and we kept contact with Dad. And then round about 2015, I think it was December, I went to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer, you're given 6 months to live, if not less. And you don't really have time to think it through. You need to know what you need to know, and you need to come to terms with whatever the processes are. And the only place I would turn, and to this day, it just was the most natural thing in the world, is I had to turn to God. And I said, look, whatever the purpose is, I need to go that way.
Those are some incredible chapters that you've had in your story leading up to 2015, and we know that the Lord has been at work in your life since then in an incredible way. But that mountain that you had to climb of pancreatic cancer wasn't the first time that essentially you were faced with death in a very trying situation.
Yeah, I think just from a life perspective, basically getting to the military, being burned badly, pretty hectic, I mean, to be honest. And secondly, following on then malaria. Both times getting to a point where what was the purpose or what was the journey at the time, I didn't really know, to be honest. I mean, I knew that from my family background that we would pray, that we would be close to God, but those were the two hurdles in the interim, and both times I was spared. I mean, I sort of got through and carried on with business.
In both of those occasions, Geoff, you woke up and your mom was there. You know, as a congregation here at St. Mark's, we knew your mom quite well, Auntie Mari Biscuits. She did incredible things, and I mean, you know her personality and her ways, and so she left an incredible impact on our ministry here. She was one of the founding members. I remember her sitting in the back. She was always sitting in the back right over there with your dad in the mornings. She always used to have a little headpiece on, and she would speak, you know, about incredible things that she had done. But the first time when you were blown up with the Afgas explosion, she came to visit you, and the wounds that you had were very serious. And you remember when she came to the hospital?
Yes. Look, I think just the journey up until here with Mom was, every time I had been in critical situations, I would wake up and, believe it or not, Mom would be there praying. You know? So the military explosion, I was a young kid and policeman's son. We had to be proud, we had to be strong. You know? And I woke up in one military hospital eventually after they flew me down, and you know, I tried to be strong as I could, and I was a bit delirious with pain. I mean, it's pretty hectic, but I heard my mom's voice coming into the isolation ward that we were, and she went over and kissed the other dude next to me because I was pretty badly burnt. And anyway, I just remember croaking, Ma. And when she came over and started praying, for the first time, physically, my whole body just relaxed. I can't explain it. You're very wound up from pain. Morphine doesn't help that much. But once she'd prayed, Mom was there. You know, and then when I had malaria, I mean, when I came out of the coma, you know, there was Mom sitting next to the bed, you know, praying. Just, I'm ashamed to say that both times I didn't really understand. You know, it was there, and it was a mother's love for her son. But the spiritual component of what had happened to me and where I was going was lost on me at the time. Yeah.
Geoff, with the time with malaria, which was also touch and go with them getting the medication mixed up, and you say you woke up and your mom was there praying, that was also very special because you hadn't been as close to your mom leading up to that point either.
Yes, my brother and our family were very, very close-knit, and when we started our first businesses, myself and my brother, it was my fault. We had a falling out, and basically I became the orphan, the black sheep in the family, my own doing, to be honest. And we hadn't spoken, you know, sadly, terribly sadly, actually, for about 5 or 6 years. You know. And Mom, essentially, there she was, and that one moment, waking up, seeing her and praying, all of that was gone. Me and Mom reunited the family, and from there, that was the most amazing thing at the end of the malaria. I mean, both of us, it was a wake-up.
Now, Geoff, despite those major wake-up calls, and both of those are really major, it didn't take very long after going through those incredible experiences where you would get back to your old ways of living, and you would just keep driving your business and driving all your other interests.
Yes, I think, you know, my whole life I've been searching to create some form of a legacy, I think. I don't have kids, wasn't blessed with kids. So basically driving the business became the most important thing, and by doing that at the time, being selflessly driving the business, you tend to live within yourself. And it didn't take long. Every time, you know, there would be a prayer, I'd come out of a calamity of sorts. And within a week to 2 weeks, you're back at the office, you're back into board meetings, you're back into the bustle and bustle of business, and the message would have been lost. I mean, I just went back to my own ways, because it's difficult to stop doing what you used to do. You know, I mean, it's the high life, and although you fly under the radar, I just don't know why I couldn't hang on. I just really couldn't hang on to the word. It didn't really make sense, to be honest. I was a latent Christian. I'd spend time satisfying Mom. Mom would phone and keep me on the path, to be honest. And my responses were to drive to work and, in between traffic for a quick 30 seconds, say, Lord, this is my story, and I know that you're going to use me. I know that you've got a purpose. I just really don't know what it is, and I trust that one day you'll show me. And I thought, well, look, one day God will tell me, and then it'll all feel right, and I will go about my business, and I'll do God's work. Until then, I could carry on building this legacy, which was pretty much centered on me or I. And so it went. And that was, I didn't read the Bible. I didn't sort of get to the message and persevere long enough to understand the message. So I was living a lie, to be honest. I was saying thank you, but not once really appreciating what God had done for me to that point.
Every time, if somebody had to ask you at that point, Geoff, in your life, if somebody had to ask you, are you a Christian? Your response would be?
I would never deny that, from a baby, Mario Connell, Jack O'Connell, certain things you don't not do. And so never did I deny being a Christian. I would stand, but I wasn't practicing. I wasn't living a Christ-centered life at all. I mean, when it came up, I would make my stand, and that was sort of my contribution to God. So look, that's sort of good enough, isn't it?
Yeah. And Geoff, another big chapter, another big hurdle in your life was when your mom passed away. And we understand that, I think for everybody, it's something that you have to deal with. And it was something that you also had to deal with. That was another moment where God was speaking to you.
Look, I think Mom taught me how one should die. I mean, watching faith in action was doors opening in my head, I would imagine. And watching her arrange her own funeral from her deathbed, writing manuals, telling us all how we needed to do things, was the first thing that I really became infilled about. And trying to understand it. Because most people, when you have a lot of pain and you're not feeling well and you understand mortality, the last thing you think of is everybody else. I mean, I couldn't understand that. And that was a starting point. Mom had asked us to look after Dad one way or the other, even though myself and my brother, we weren't talking, and it saddened our whole family. It actually pulled us apart. And later on in life, that became so clear. So there was a message, I could understand it, but what I was seeing was I was respecting, like a loving son. I was looking at my mom and saying, wow, where did you find, because I think we all fear death to an extent. When the angel of death visits, it takes a lot. And just watching this absolute courage, I couldn't understand it. And while it was something to watch, to be honest. It's just, I got to that point, but the lesson, I think, where God was again trying to reach out to say, kid, wake up, just listen to what's happening. I didn't get the message, to be honest, even at that time. So Mom had actually written me quite a few letters, to be honest. And when she passed away, I was really cut up about losing Mom. So I didn't read them because Mom would write a letter to tell you, listen, kid, you should have gone left here, or you should have gone right there. And the more I read the letters, it was about everything I couldn't connect with. It was like, Mom, you are on your deathbed. I'm still getting beaten up, and I don't understand why you're beating me up. I mean, I'm asking for a calling. I'm ready to go. But so I then put them all in a cupboard, and it didn't take long. After Mom's passing was a mountain for me, and ultimately it didn't take long, and I sort of come to terms with it, and healed, and then I carried on with life as normal, and started thinking about Mom, and I typed in Mario Connell into Google, and she didn't exist at all. And I looked at life, and I said, but Mom, to me as a son, and I don't, she'd done so much, and she wasn't remembered in any way. So I think maybe misguided. I said, well, look, I've got to start a foundation called the MOC Foundation. And if you type in Mario Connell now, that was, you'll find her name. The interesting thing about that stage of what I was doing is that while I You know, I was so far from God, to be honest. Bruce had written a tribute to my mother. I didn't know how to write my mom's Christian journey because I wasn't connected. Somehow I wasn't plugged in. You know? And I'd actually took Bruce's tribute and I said, look, I need to edit this, and this is mom's story. You know? And it just shows you I was very, very far from mom. So the Christian component of MOC literally sort of came from Bruce's pen and a recollection that I had of mom. And that's, so we started that, and basically it was a charity. You know, if I give X amount to various charities, well, you know, I'm doing mom's work. You know, that's how I actually honestly thought mom, because mom was going to cancer wards, she was selfless, she was giving of her time. So I thought, well, that's it. If I do this and mom's remembered, now at least she's not immortalized, but you know, just to be able to say, mom, you know, you're there. Because the more I tried to get her online, mom was analog. It's just not going digital in any way. So I understand it now. I didn't at the time. So.
And the MOC Foundation then, Geoff, that continued for many years, sort of going through and offering that legacy to your mom. But your life also continued, and you were getting close to 50, which I still look forward to, but apparently it's quite a milestone. And so things started changing within your thinking as well.
Yeah, just on the MOC Foundation, you know, looking back, it was a sham, to be honest. No, it was a Section 18A certificate. It was a tax deduction. You know, running businesses, you tend to look at the best business outcomes. So, you know, in some way I look back and I'm ashamed at what we were trying to do. It was done with good intent, I know that, but it wasn't in line. As we sort of coped with that, getting to 50, you know, I think I did what every other guy that gets to 50, I don't know if you'll do the same, but you know, you buy a Harley Davidson, you're going to make noise, you drink more, you party harder. Yeah, I think that most people go through that, I don't know, but I went through that. And I developed a passion for extreme off-road motorcycling, and really hit it with a passion, except I wasn't very good at it, so I kept falling and ended up, Bev would take me to casualties just about every weekend. Drove the business even harder. Something, for some reason, just kept pushing, relentlessly driving the business. And I think, looking back, it was to create some form of a legacy. I don't have children. Bevy, my wife, who's stood by me all this time, and she's got kids, and we have a great relationship. But somewhere along the line, there was something missing. I didn't understand why I was driving the business relentlessly. And at that time, we had 22 divisions, which we were running across Africa. And the more I pushed the business and tried to live this yuppie, because I'm pretty much stealth mode type person. We didn't, you know, keep your name out the paper and remember your friends, was what my dad always taught me as a policeman. And you know, I've tried to honor that all the way, and so it's quite foreign for me to be sitting here talking in front of people, but I feel that it's necessary. So that was pretty much what happened. We kept driving the business, and leading up to 2015, we had created a group of companies to our own equity fund, and it was the best year. I mean, everything was lining up. The future was great. I mean, most of the business plans we put into place were now really coming to favor, you know, and all I wanted to do was make it to December. I was starting to feel really tired. I mean, and I was really chuffed. I was losing a bit of weight, which is good on a motorcycle for balance. But I just wanted to make it to the 18th of December to break. And then somewhere along the line, I ended up around about the 3rd of December.
And that was the big mountain, December 2015, Geoff, that you were not expecting. But that God knew was going to be there.
Yes, Bev forced me to go and see a doctor.
Good wife.
Yes, incessantly. I ended up at the doc, and I had quite a bit of lower back pain and some tummy ache. And they did a scan, and I knew something was wrong when the lady that did the sonar scan, she said, "Look, can you just wait here?" And she had a tear in her eye. I mean, so, oh, bit of a passion killer aftershave. What is this? So she went and called the guy that probably gives you the bad news, I imagine, and he rocks up, and I could see, look, something's not going well in this scan. I mean, anyway, so they wouldn't tell me anything, and they just said, "Look, you know, how long have you been feeling well?" You know, they asked the medical questions, and then asked me to sit outside, and this sense of foreboding, I think, sort of struck in. And they came back and said, look, you've got a tumor on the head of your pancreas, and this is really a big sign. I didn't know what a pancreas was, to be honest, at the time. A pancreas, I mean, so what, you just take it out? I mean, turns out it's pretty critical to survival, and they couldn't do it. So I said, well, how long do you think I have? And, I was honestly, this was like a movie, like, how long do I have? What's the worst you can say? And so I thought I'll throw the shortest time frame I could think of, and I said, like 6 months. And when you said maybe less, the lights went off. I just sat there and I said, well, hang on, I was just unprepared for this. And I went outside and sat in the car, and I said, well, I can't not tell the office, because the time frames now means we need to hand over 22. I don't have too many options. I had to go and tell Bev. So life pretty much stopped for a while there, and a bit of shock, to be honest, in the start. So that's how I found out. Went home, and instinctively, I think the love of a mother, somewhere along the line, I knew I had to turn to God. The problem is I didn't know how. I didn't read the manual at all. I had been praying, and I'd been honoring with the direction that Mom and Dad had given us as children, but I could never follow through and become a practicing Christian. I didn't live the lifestyle. I mean, if you asked me if I was a Christian, yes, and I thought I'd been living a pretty good life up until then. I mean, I ran an ethical business. We did things the right way. We worked hard. So I had no frame of reference, to be honest, and I just went down. I just cried and said, Lord, look, there's got to be a purpose. I just really need to find out what that purpose was. And started from there. That's where a journey in the dark started. You're taking off at night without any landing lights, to be honest. You don't know where you're going to land or if you've got enough fuel. And as a business person, up until then, I'd lived in a world where I could control everything around. You understand? In other words, you're the CEO, no one really barks at you, and they should have maybe. And I would bark, I would be a bully, I'd actually be pompous and arrogant, to be honest. And when you sit there and you look back at life trying to make out very much purpose, 6 months, you've got to read the manual. And the first thing that the manual tells you is it takes 12 months to have a good reading plan to understand the Bible. 6 months means read twice as fast, maybe, but got very despondent because I had a study Bible and each verse started with the New Testament. I would try and read a chapter, but to try and understand the message, because you needed to do that, and it was going too slow. I thought, as the week went by, I thought, look, I'm not going to read that. So I started working out which chapters I could skip to get to the message. And the problem was asking God to give me guidance, and weekly, because you don't trust that God will give you guidance. If you're not connected with God, for some reason, it doesn't work. And the more I prayed feverishly, look, I've got to make this journey. And my first goal was 3 months, because from when they told me I had cancer, they gave me a Christmas present. I had to have chemo immediately. And they were hoping to shrink this tumor so they could potentially operate, because the only way you theoretically cure pancreatic cancer is to cut it out. And half of your pancreas, which I didn't know very well. So that was the first phase. And the problem was, the more I was reading the manual, the more it's a fearful thing to fall in the hands of a righteous God. Every page I turned, it just indicated how much I had been sinning. I was swore, I drank, I was arrogant. I mean, there was nothing, honestly, reading through that Old Testament, there was nothing that I said, oh, well, at least I'd got that right. I didn't get many right. Really caring for your family, the way I was treating those closest to me, that I'd become so self-centered. And secondly, I didn't understand love. Constantly the Bible refers to love, but really couldn't put it together at all. And the more I did that, I realized there was only one way. I had to surrender entirely, because business, seeing is believing. You do business plans, you do feasibilities. Everything is done on fact and no fiction. And somewhere I had to let go, but I really couldn't. I just human. And the more I prayed, the more I seemed to battle with it. Anyway, so God then started doing things in my life. I ended up in Cape Town, and step by step, cancer became taking off in a plane at night with no lights. And the more you pray, somewhere in the distance, God puts a little runway light, and you hope to land safely. And I mean, I didn't read the manual, can't fly the plane, and just hopefully find the runway. And as soon as you land, you think you're safe, and then they give you the next diagnosis or the next chapter of the treatment. And you seem to be taking off in the dark again. And there are no runway lights anywhere. So you pray and you pray and you pray and you hold, and you wait till you see the next runway lights, and God willing, you're going to land. Thing is that came back from Cape Town, landed that one, got out of that one alive. And I realized, look, you've now got 2 to 3 months to live. That's what they told me. And weeks go by very quickly. And you become feverish in trying to find the word. In other words, Lord, please, I need to understand this. Because the biggest thing is you've got to have trust. And I couldn't find trust. Everybody tells you, I had all these terms, rest in the Lord, every hair on your head. The fact is, practicing Christians, they know this. I came to St. Mark's, and sitting among these people that pray, that look so happy, I'm sitting here in pain. I just realized, but I have no idea of where and how I must trust. There's a connection, something in my life is missing, to be honest, and I don't know how to find it. So, look, I learned about purpose. I've learned so many things. Then the next journey, like I said, was they done the op. They sent me home and said, well, look, you've got 3 months, and didn't turn out so well, because I was going to need 6 months to walk properly again after they cut your abdomen open. And it was a very bad time. And Mom had explained that, funny enough, Mom, again, when Moms pray for you, you're going to make it. So that essentially what you put in a furnace, it's what comes out the other end. In other words, burn away whatever it is that is not good in life, and if you make it to the other side, hopefully the good in you will be left. Very bad time. People around me, I started reflecting on my own life rather than wanting to live, because Mom had taught me how to die, and I had to honestly dig deep and say, well, look, rather than feeling self-pity or worrying about any self-indulgences, prepare to die. Okay? I mean, you don't know how, you didn't read the manual, get there. That became a focus, and the biggest thing is where I was beating myself up was I didn't know how to have faith. And I would not ask for miracles. I didn't deserve them. If anybody doesn't deserve a miracle in this whole church, it is me. The amount of grief that I have caused people by sole and singularly chasing business success is, in my own mind, in my own words, disgusting. It was all done innocently, I would imagine, if you could call it innocent, but lead by example, work yourself to death. But what I realized around me, I was causing other people to break into pieces because of a singular drive. You become the rock that they hurt themselves on. And slowly but surely, I realized, talking to my aunt, she wanted to know, she's 86, and we really got along. She wanted to know why she was still here.
It's your mom's sister.
It's my mom's sister. And we turned out we both had the same life expectancy now, so we could we could really talk to each other. And basically, I then dug out Mom's letters, because I turned to every manual I could. I'd gone to various church services, and tried to listen to somebody that would give me this message that I could understand. I'm a practical man. I'm not very clever, but I'm very practical. And if I understand something, I can buy into it, and I can believe it, and I can live it. And up until that point, through all of these incidents, I'd yet to hit that practical, that little cog that just makes it all work. And there was great advice, but none of them felt right. None of them were the thing that bound where I was going to go. And time is ticking. You don't buy green bananas when you get on the home straight. You may not eat them. I mean, long life milk. How's that? So, and that's pretty much how I kept going. And slowly but surely, something dawned that I had to understand that I may not have faith. I may not have enough trust. But I couldn't beat myself up about me having enough faith for either God to heal me or to save me. That's where I was going wrong. And Sorrel, good people, God sent people, that's the only way I can explain it. He sent people to me at the right times to give me, not messages, we just talk, and I was able to realize, reading Acts, going through the Gospels, they didn't make sense. I would read Hebrews and I'd say, but look, circumcised, uncircumcised, the flesh, I mean, hey, hang on, all those sins that I had, and I just couldn't connect. And people came and said, why don't you read this book? And I read a simple book called The Gospel of Grace, at the age of 54 then. I didn't think I'd make the 55th birthday. And as I read it, I started understanding a message of some sort, and where I'd been very alien to the word love. I mean, really struggled with the concept of love for various reasons. It's probably building a business where I wasn't very loving. I was pretty ruthless, to be honest. Turns out that somewhere in this message, you need to understand the concept of love, and that was the first thing. And once I realized I don't have to have enough faith. I don't think I'll ever have enough faith, to be honest, even now. But do I believe God could heal me? Do I trust that if He wanted to, in anything He would do in my life, would I have enough faith to believe that? And the answer was unequivocal. It was, of course, God can do anything. So that was the first turning point. And then I read these books, and I went back to Acts. And for the first time it started making sense. That I'm a Gentile, that hang on, the story works. This could really be there. Still hadn't quite connected it, to be honest, but that was the start of the journey. And look, cancer, Charlie, whatever I say, it's a journey. And a lot of people say that when in the research with pancreatic cancer, I can tell you the one thing that I found amazing was that of anybody, there's about a 1% chance of making it with pancreatic, to be honest. And 75% of the 1% that actually made it all cited faith. So I knew from the beginning, look, there was something with faith, but I just felt completely insecure in my abilities at all. And anyway, that was the journey up until then. And the more I went to the oncologist, I couldn't tell the oncologist that, God would cure me. The more I spoke to people and tried to witness, because, as a young Christian now, you want to witness to everybody, you run around with plaques, You don't say more than 5 sentences, right, that you know that God, you're really trying to earn my way into heaven, And then I found out nothing I was going to do was going to get me there at all. And instead of really liberating and making it free at the time, I thought, wow, I'm in a whole new territory now. And that was the start of just getting to a point. Coming to church then, I didn't come to church anywhere for the first, 3 months, until after the operation. And that is because when I was trying to find the word, the more I spoke to people, I got incredibly confused. There were different doctrines. I didn't even know what doctrine was. And the more I tried to read, I tried to go to the internet, and everything I learned was one contradicts the other. There's a set of rules, legalism, Arminianism. I really, really struggled with it. So once my brother gave me the advice after listening to various aspects. He said, go and see Bruce. Mom, I knew that Mom had been there. So that's how I got there. And once I sat down, I could sit in the church and realize that for an hour I could really intently listen and want to listen. Up until that point in my whole life, if you spoke for more than 5 minutes about religion, I either felt guilty or I felt uncomfortable. I didn't really want to listen to the message. Long story short, I started, and somewhere along the line, Mom had written us all these self-help manuals, and I took some of them out, and they painful. Because there was this message that Mom had actually written, and what I was finding is that when you give your life to the Lord, certain things happen in me, but I didn't recognize it. Like when you become a new person, how you need to react. And when I read Mom's letters, the first part of this journey was, there it was, that you become a new person, that your spirit gets quickened, and how she'd actually coped with it. And I hadn't read the letter, so when you read it after the fact, it puts you start putting two and two together. And the most profound thing that she'd written, that I only found out the last few days in opening the closets for the testimonial, was she said that only God could raise, or I think raise is the right word, your thoughts from a natural plane to a supernatural plane. And then it confusing initially, because it means I need to use God to trust God, and only God can get me to trust Him. Turns out she was right. And just the eyes opened, and slowly from surely there, I still don't know how this turns out for me, but I do know that all my life up until that point, with my parents, my brother chasing business, I couldn't connect God. I couldn't join the dots to a point where it made absolute sense to, this is how I should live. And slowly but surely something changed. I started realizing that there is a supernatural world, because to me, telling me to believe in an invisible God, Mom, people telling me how miracles took place, I couldn't connect with. And the journey, as we go, I wouldn't have made it if I checked out in 6 months, to be honest. I don't think I was there. I just lay in hospital saying, look, I surrender my body and my spirit. It's all I can do. I don't deserve anything, and if that's good enough, Lord, and thank the Lord that I'm here. And the learning process means I get to a point where I'm happy to die. Yeah, really. No, the thing is, this is one life, and when the connections happen, I have an eternity to look forward to, and I really, I can honestly tell you that I really, really believe it. And seeing my parents again, seeing the loved one, it became a way of life. I couldn't do anything short term. What I needed to do, and I don't like to use the word practicing Christian, because I'm not a good Christian. I've been here for 18 months, 2 years. I think everybody in this church that has been coming to church knows more than me. All I have is a mother, a set of manuals, and now a belief. And I can honestly tell you that in some way in my mind, I believe. It wasn't easy.
It took you 54 years to get there. And that's one of the things that you've said to me so many times. You can't believe it took 54 years to get the message. And I think one of the greatest areas that God has worked in your heart is He's instilled within you a passion so that others can get the message. So that they don't have to wait until their Harley Davidson moment at 50. They don't have to wait until they have their mountain of cancer or some other event. And I think for your mom, one thing that I remember about your mom, Geoff, is because she walked a road knowing she battled with cancer for 20 years. She walked a road. She was flying from one runway to another for 20 years. And there's a verse, Philippians 1, verse 21, that says, "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." You can now reflect that same sentiment that your mom had. And I think the story that you tell, which is one that no one can orchestrate, is that your mom was writing letters 20 years ago, praying and asking that the Lord would call you. And for 10 years, you had the letters, and they were in a cupboard. Until this week, you took the letters out of the cupboard, and some of them you read for the very first time. To read a letter that your mom wrote 20 years ago, and now to be able to connect with it, is something that only God can do. And so we are very grateful that the MOC Foundation is no longer just a Section 18A, but it has incredible purpose. Because you came to see me in December of 2016, a year after you'd been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and you said, "Warren, I don't know if St. Mark's is interested," were your words. But I'd like to get this message of grace out freely to whoever wants to hear it. And Geoff, when you said that to me, I literally laughed. It's like, we're not really interested in getting the message of grace out.
Maybe a bit of oversell.
So, and that is the journey that we see where the Lord is working, that He is able to call people, no matter where they've been, no matter what they've been through, no matter where they're going, and He's able to connect around something central, and that central message is God's love, and that's what it's really about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the irony in my story, for what it's worth, is you become this new creation. You try and I stopped swearing without knowing that I stopped swearing. I stopped drinking without thinking. I think a couple of months in bed will do that for you. But I think the message component, what I really battled with, is that if it is made available, because if it wasn't for cancer, I wouldn't be sitting here. I need to be brutally honest. It did take a mountain, and the weirdest thing is that if it wasn't for Mother's love in many ways and prayer, and funny enough, that right from up there she can pray me onto this stage. That sounds like Mom, But so the message I needed to consummate when we came and saw you is that I looked at the youth today, and we have an ITC business, and we look at how the internet works, and it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. You won't find God through the internet, that I know, because I did, and there's so many trolls and people that write weird and wonderful. Then you have a good message, and then 10 guys put graffiti all over the page, and so it was go back to analog, and ultimately trying to find something that, if I look at what my mother had left for me and my father, the manual was intact. I just didn't understand how to, firstly, read the manual, and then secondly, I should have maybe, all the years that were lost, the kindnesses that could have been done, the impact, it's no point in regretting. God forgives all of us, if we believe. It got to a point where I felt to come and talk to you, but one way or the other, to start a website, to look at audio Bibles, to look at a way where I really went wrong is I didn't read the manual. It's that simple. And trying to find ways to do that with the church, and it's fledgling steps because I'm not really equipped to be an expert on anything. So that's where we are, and I know that the Lord will guide us. Blind trust is the most amazing thing. That when the least of my worries is business. I now pray about the biggest deals we do. And when you stare death in the face, I guess, I don't want to be melodramatic, you really don't care if anybody places an order or not. It's the least of your worry. So that's where we are, and I believe that the legacy and trying to raise, like Mom said, to this supernatural plane where being a Christian is not something you do. I used to walk past a Bible, and if I didn't read the Bible three times a day, the thought that goes through your head is, I'm going to die sooner, I'm going to have more pain when I check out. I must read it because that will help me on my journey. The message that I took out of it, and that I really would like MOC to work with, is that I now read a Bible because I really want to. There's no reason not to read your Bible if you want to. When you're doing it because you feel that is going to get you to be a practicing Christian, I found that I was getting it wrong. If we can get that message to people where they can get there a little bit sooner, because I didn't find the message because I got the wrong message. And I think Satan does that to us. You don't persevere long enough to make the connection with the supernatural. It's taken me 18 months just to get here. And I think Mom must be praying up a storm up there just to say, look, get the message 18 months later. So I'm there, Mom.
Geoff, you've said so many times that cancer was a mountain that you had to face. And I'd like to read Matthew 17, verse 20, where Jesus speaks to his disciples. And he says to them, because of your unbelief, For assuredly I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. You've discovered that faith. And Geoff, I think if you'd like to share with us what the undertaker, you've referred to your oncologist as the oncologist. So you've been very polite so far in this interview, but I know that you call him the undertaker. So if you would like to let us know what the undertaker told you on Friday when you went for your scan.
Because in case my oncologist is watching me.
Oh, so you don't call it to his face?
Well, I did on Friday. Look, if I can, when you start going to a cancer ward and you've been self-sufficient, the first thing you learn is that you become dependent on his opinion, what he tells you. And when you go to a homeopath, they have delusions of grandeur because they can cure you with herbs and spices. And so everywhere I went, to try and research. As an obsessive type person, I did all the homework. But what he told me when we started there was, look, kid, you really don't have much. T2 tumors, stage 3, and they got the diagnosis wrong a few times. And he says, look, just please forgive me, because I arrived there with a iPad. I'd had all my information. I wanted answers and percentages as I would normally. And he said, look, first we go for the first lap, and then, if we'll become friends later. And I couldn't get him to say anything positive at all. It's just, look, and he gets all the lung cancer and the pancreatic guys. You get these real dudes that they take all the serious cases, and so I found out that later. And ultimately, he just wouldn't in any way give you any positives because there weren't many, to be honest. And he said, look, if we get through this, eventually we'll become friends. But until then, they train not to become friendly with you because, it exacerbates it. So eventually, I called him an undertaker. And the more I saw him, I'd keep going in and saying, listen, pal, when are we going to live in a bit of hope? So long story short, after, I think it just passed, when I passed the 6-month phase, I broke my life into 3-month increments, and every time I'd make 3 months, it was like a clay pot, I'd shoot that one and say, well, look, at least now I'll try and make the next 3 months, as I did with business. And so having a chat to him, the whole time I would see him, I'd see him every 3 months in between treatment, and I just told him about how the journey would work for handing over our business interests. And I went there on Friday, and I told him, look, I just going to tell you about faith. Whatever you tell me now, I've come to terms, because I'm now finally, to be honest, I'm in a really good place to die. I've got to a point where to die is gain, and I can honestly tell you that. I walk in there and he tells me, look, you're in remission. But true to an undertaker, he did say, well, look, if it comes back, but I don't have a sell-by date now. And to be frank, whatever time God gives me, it's whenever it takes me and whatever I have to do, I just want to tell everybody, look, guys, I'm ill-equipped to be talking to you. I haven't lived a good Christian life, and I don't have enough internal knowledge. Mom's letters, it's just freakish how certain sequences of events have taken place. The thing that really scares me, though, is if God has a purpose, and I just hope whatever it is that I can do, that it has some form of input. And so the oncologist, he's my mate again, so
I think I understand now why you've stopped calling him the undertaker, which makes sense. But Geoff, we're going to, as we wrap up, we're going to conclude with a letter that your mom wrote 20 years ago. And you only read that letter for the first time this week as you were anticipating coming to share your testimony with us, not knowing what the outcome was going to be with your visit to the oncologist on the Friday. You read this letter on the Tuesday, and it's just one of those ways that God works in our lives, and shows us that ultimately we are here for His glory, and that His message is going to be preached, whether through you, whether through me, whether through anybody else. God's message will always be preached because His truth will remain. Everything else will fade away, and God's word will stand sure. And so, Geoff, I thank you for coming up here and sharing your testimony and for being a light that shines in our lives. The Lord bless you, Geoff.
But one thing you must remember, that out there somewhere is your mother, loving you and praying that God will call you and that you will accept his gift of love, his Son, Jesus Christ. Because even if we gain the whole world and lose our souls, we are lost for eternity. I pray that your life and work will bring glory and honor to his name. And to be of service to the Lord, we need to have a close relationship with him. You have so many wonderful talents that he can use in his service. Just open up the channel. God will do it all.